And it looks like we are good to go. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Life Maximizer Academy. I'm your host, Donnie Hill, founder and CEO of Life Maximizer. And today I have with me my special guest, Eva Medilek, who is a high performance and relationship success coach. Eva, it's really nice to have you here with me.
Oh, I'm so excited for our conversation today, Donnie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I love starting by just giving people an opportunity to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you do and how you came to do the work that you're doing now.
Great. Well, my primary focus is helping highly driven, high achieving people marry the practices and principles of high performance with relationship coaching so that you can achieve that next level of success in your life without sacrificing personal fulfillment in the process. Because what I've noticed is that, especially entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders and influencers, we really get so caught up in everything that we're doing to reach that next level of success or support our clients or create a good living for our families, that we oftentimes will sacrifice our health, our well-being, and our relationships in the process. It's more about the doing and not about the being. So when I coach my clients, I really marry those two principles together of high performance and relationship coaching so that they can truly have it all. And of course, your mess becomes your message, right?
For sure.
When I was building my real estate business, I started building that about 10 years ago, coming out of, actually, I was still working as a dental hygienist. So I came out of the field of dentistry. And so I was still working my full-time job, like a lot of entrepreneurs do, and building their business at the same time. And I found myself kind of doing it all, studying, learning, traveling, doing everything I could to build the business, and working and cooking and shopping and laundry and, like the and. I had this like invisible superwoman cape that I could do it all. But I also had that urgency because I didn't, start my entrepreneurial journey till I was 50. And so I was really like, go, 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 because, my husband and I had dreams and we had plans. And it was in that process of doing it all that I found myself burnt out, stressed out, and an overwhelmed kind of hot mess. So my health was suffering, my mood was suffering, and as a result of that, my relationship started falling apart, and that was culminated in the discovery that my husband had started to fall in love with another woman. And it was in that moment of that discovery that I realized that I played a responsibility, that I played a role in that, and that if I didn't change who I was being in the process of my doing, that I could truly lose it all. And so that's when I really had my own personal come to Jesus moment, where it wasn't worth working myself to the bone if I wasn't going to have anybody to enjoy the fruits of it with. And so, we were faced in that moment of turning this breakdown either into a breakup or a breakthrough. And we decided to do the work on our relationship and on ourselves individually so that we could have a breakthrough in creating a new relationship. We literally decided to toss out what we already had and just like do over. And we started fresh, and happy to say that we have really found a way to be our best selves for each other, not only for each other, but for ourselves, of course, but we show up our best for each other, which we weren't doing before.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And there's so much in it that you shared that both resonated personally and is where I want to take the conversation. because I've always been entrepreneurial ever since I was a little kid. My dad had his own businesses. My sister does her own thing, and so it's just a part of who I am and how I operate. And it wasn't until I started thinking about this conversation where I realized I haven't fully articulated why, what I'm trying to accomplish and why this work is so important to me. And I think that was a big part of where some of my challenges came from in my relationship, because I didn't communicate about it. It was just all in my head. And so I'm just been over here doing my own thing and building, but not really giving any context to my partners and helping them really understand, why am I putting in this time and energy and effort, and what's going to be the end goal? Because the conversation is always, you don't have enough time, you're not around, you're not helping do other things for the house because you're always working. And there's also this internal thing of, I'm working because I'm working on my mission. And I have to find what that balance is. But it's also important that I communicate what it is that I'm doing so you can understand why I'm doing it. And then we can have a conversation around that.
Yeah, how many entrepreneurs are like, but I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this so that we could have. And, and as soon as we get, X, Y, and Z, as soon as I make X amount of dollars in my business, then we can work on the relationship. Then we'll have more time together. And I call BS on that. And here's why. Because when you are really a high achieving, highly driven entrepreneur, there's never that destination. You're always on the journey. The magic happens when you create a both and a win-win. Where we fall down is thinking balance means equal. And the balance in our personal and professional lives is not equal. And it's just okay. So when are you pouring into your personal life? When are you pouring into your professional life? And what agreements are you putting in place with your partner so that you can create the both and? And that's where that really connected, intimate, vulnerable conversations come in. And let's get on the same page. Let's share our mission. Let's share our feelings. But it's a level of respect that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and highly driven people, whether you're entrepreneurial or you're working for another company, but you're still driven, don't give their partners, is that level of respect to let's create a win-win, how we can make this work. These are my goals and visions. These are your goals and visions. And then we have our goals and visions together. And so can we create space to be creative on our individual projects and passions and on our projects and passions that we have together? And what does that look like? How does that work? Yeah.
Well, I love that you brought in both the intimacy and success, because I think those mean so many different things to everybody. So I would love to get your definition around, how do you define relationship success? How do you define intimacy? And then how do you help your clients interweave those two?
Well, intimacy is, it's really cliche, intimacy, which, it just reminds me of that Sex and the City episode that, or yeah, you're probably too young for that. But anyway.
I like Sex and the City.
Oh my God. You know what's funny? A lot of them were my patient when I was working in New York City. So we had a lot of the cast there. And so I was like starstruck and trying to be professional at the same time. But yeah, it was one of the best shows out there. Miss it. But, being intimate is really it's a level of honesty that incorporates a lot of things. It incorporates courage. It incorporates clarity. It incorporates energy. It incorporates influence. It incorporates having an impact. But basically, when you are in a conversation, either in a romantic relationship, a relationship with your children, your siblings, your parents, your coworkers, people in your community. It really is setting up those conversations so that the people you are in conversation with feel seen, heard, and respected. And so what I call it is, it's really activating generous listening along with honest sharing. But honest sharing in a way, there's a formula to it. I actually have an ebook called 6 Powerful Ways of Being that foster effective communication and connection in your relationship. And so one of the ways of being is, how do we listen generously? Listen, most of us are in conversation and we're listening, formulating what our response is going to be. Whether we're going to defend, whether we're going to react, whether we're going to counteract. And it takes us out of generous listening to just be in receiving and be fully present with what the other person is saying. Because as soon as you start formulating how you're going to defend or respond or, react to what they're saying, it takes you out of that. And we also don't take time. And this is, in a lot of our relationships, to acknowledge and appreciate who the other person is, and acknowledge either the struggle they have or the triumphs they have. I mean, how many of us have gone to our partners and spouses or even our employees and say, okay, this is what's not working and this is what you need to do. Or, you left this on at home, or you didn't, close the garage door, or whatever it is. We go straight into that. And we don't take the time to, what I call, to prepare the soil. Of acknowledgement and appreciation. We're just going to plant the seed in hard frozen ground and hope for the best, that somebody will pee on it and it'll get watered that way. But no, we have to set ourselves up to win. And that may mean focusing out and making sure the other person's needs are taken care of in a way that when we have something to share, or we have an ask, or we need support from them, they're more apt to give it to us. And it's not fake at all. It's just really being, basic consideration, I guess, is what you can boil it down to.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to being intimate, is really having the uncomfortable conversations, being vulnerable, and really being honest about your feelings. I can give an example.
Sure.
That may help, because I remember there was back when we used to go to Christmas parties. Remember that?
God, it feels like ages ago.
I remember there was one year I was training for an endurance challenge. And for me to do anything like that is, I might as well grow a second head. But I was really proud. I had this coach, and we were training for an endurance challenge where I didn't know what the challenge would be, but we were training. So that required me to get up really early, whether I was traveling or at home, and get my workouts in before the day started, because we had very specific workouts. And I remember overhearing my husband at a gathering that we were at for the holidays. And he was saying, my wife's crazy. She gets up at 5 a.m. to do these workouts. And she's like, she's nuts. She's out of her mind. And I remember feeling my heart sink at that point. Like, that really hurt. Now, the old me just would have held that in and been pissed and be like, you know what you did. Like, how many of us have done that? We wanted our spouses or our partners to be a mind reader.
You should just know.
Just know. But I was really hurt. And then I sat back and I was like, you know what? I don't think this man wakes up and plans how he's going to hurt my feelings every day. I really don't think he wakes up with that intent. But I also know that if I came at him and accused him, like, how dare you say that? That hurt my feelings. It would make him feel bad. And when we feel bad, we get reactive. And then it's going to start. So I remember saying to him one night at dinner, and I said, I I need to talk to you about something that's been on my mind, that's been bothering me. Is now a good time? First, make sure it's a good time. You do not want to have a conversation with a hangry person. If they're hungry, they're tired, they got to pee, whatever. Make sure everybody's comfortable. And I remember saying to him, "Is like, look, honey, I know you love me. And I know you would never intentionally hurt me. And I know you were probably making a joke, but when you said X, Y, and Z at, so-and-so's party, I really felt hurt. That really just cut me and hurt my feelings." And, for him, his response is, "Oh my God, of course I love you. I would never want to hurt you. I didn't realize it had that affected you." And pardon me, fast forward to our next opportunity to be out. I heard him telling the same story, but it was like, "I'm so proud of my wife. She's getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, working for this endurance challenge. And she's just like amazing. I'm in awe of her and what she can do." And it was just like, I felt heard. Yeah. Because he changed. He still told the story, but he told it from a different angle that lifted me up instead of, bringing me down. And I know the other one was his way of being funny, like, "Oh my God, you're crazy." How many times have we said that? But for that particular thing, it was such a big deal for me that the joke hurt.
I think that's been one of the things that I've been finding in my own relationship journey, in my romantic relationship and in my professional relationship, is I'm becoming a lot more cognizant of how I go about talking about people's experiences, because it really is a matter of words. Like, they either diminish or they elevate, and it can be in a split second. And so I'm a lot more thoughtful and intentional in how I go about talking about things. But it's also bringing how I talk about myself, bringing attention to how I talk about myself, and how I listen to people. So there were a couple of things that you said when you were giving your explanation of generous listening, and then honest sharing. And with the generous listening, when I talk to people about influence or communication, I often talk to them about, you're either listening to control or you're listening to connect. And it really is just a different space, because it's no longer about trying to make you wrong or make the other person wrong. It's about finding, where's the overlap between us, and how do we build a bridge? And when you are on the receiving end of that kind of listening, it feels so good. You're like, wow, you're really with me in this conversation. Like, we're not in the boxing ring, we're driving in the car together. Yeah. And the other piece around the honest sharing is that there's something beautiful about honest sharing, when you bring dignity and respect to the conversation, and communicate from that place. But also, I think there's more opportunities to do honest sharing around appreciation and acknowledgement. And I know that's been a weak muscle of mine. Like, even hearing you say, is like, oh yeah, I haven't done any type of like verbal appreciation or acknowledgement.
See, I'm from the East Coast, New York. We don't appreciate it. We're like, let's get the job done. I don't have time for your feelings right now. Don't be all up in your feelings. We got stuff to do. So it is a level of consciousness, when it comes to really being in a connected relationship, that we get to be mindful of.
When you And now let's layer in Miss COVID, Mr. COVID. What are some of the things that you're seeing now with your clients as they navigate their relationships with quarantine? Because sometimes work has been escapes for people, and now that they can't necessarily escape, they're dealing with their work, they're dealing with their home life, and people either have the tools to communicate better and have these difficult conversations or uncomfortable conversations, or they don't. So it just becomes a lot more chaotic.
I find that my clients are very busy. I'm very busy, and I think we talked offline a little bit. Like, busy sometimes is a distraction from the connection and intimacy, and we can use that to avoid. And now that we're in COVID, there's no place to run and hide. If you're working from home and it's just like, the kids are there, or your wife or your husband, or somebody needs you for something, and you can, hide behind a Zoom screen, or, I do a lot of writing. And one of the things that I really, really emphasize with my clients is what I call transitions. Don't be behind the computer screen for 2 and 3 hours working on something without taking a 5 or 10-minute break. And that break could look like anything. My dog and I just did what I called a release break, where I sat for 2 minutes. She was in her bed, snoozing on me, and I just took 10 intentional deep breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth, but also was releasing the energy from the morning, from everything that I had to do in the morning, so that I could refresh myself and re-energize for the afternoon. And what that looks like is, I've got my morning routine that gets me revved up for the day, but also it's like just eating breakfast and expecting that to fuel you for the whole day. None of us really have. If you look at, if you do the analogy of race cars, they stop for pit stops. So I call it pit stops. You get to schedule in pit stops so that you release and re-energize yourself, so that you are showing up on your A game. But as you transition from, your business in front of your computer, if you're working from home, to in a relationship with the people in your house, when you leave your home office or your bedroom to go be a mom, a dad, a partner, a spouse, don't just up and leave. Give yourself a transition habit so that you ground yourself, like, okay, I'm leaving work in this room, and I'm going to be a fully present partner. I'm going to be a fully present mom. I'm going to be a fully present dad. And sit for 2 or 3 minutes and transition to that next role. And the magic is in the transitions, because we get frustrated when we're exhausted and stressed out, and then our moods are affected, and then we're not fully present because we're trying to multitask. We've got the phone, a kid needs something's wrong with the computer on Zoom. And I've got like a little set of essential oils here that I'll just breathe in a few deep breaths if I need to be grounded, if I need to lift up my energy, and something about what that does to the brain. So like, okay, I'm going into what I call, and this is tongue in cheek, so nobody get upset, my obedient wife mode. Because my husband's always wanted an obedient wife. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what you got. But there are like, I'll get maybe 5 minutes. You know what? I feel like being an obedient wife right now. What do you need? And it's kind of like our little joke. And so then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be domesticated, and I'll cook for you. I'll give you a drink like a 50s housewife. And we do it as a form of entertainment. I just want to make sure that nobody hears that and thinks that I'm, a subservient, obedient person. But we do it to keep humor. And that's what, that's part of the transition for me, because, when we got in trouble before, I was always on work mode, and the life was annoying to me. It was a distraction from what I was trying to create in my business. And that resentment showed energetically. Like, you're taking me away from this. You need, people that show, you have clients that show what they're like, how you doing? You're all happy. And they're like, like, okay, here we go. Well, I was that person. So yeah, I can totally, I love coaching that person. I was like, oh my God, I love you. You were me 5 years ago. Let's do this. Let's break you out of that so that you can show up joyful and energetic in every area of your life. So I hope that answered the question.
It did. No, it did. And one of the things that I love so much about your work and even just what you're sharing in our conversation is your tools are so practical and they don't take a long time. Like you can do it in 2 minutes, you can do it in 5 minutes. But I think having some tools that people can reach for is really, really helpful, because yes, it takes time and energy to break the habit and begin doing some new things. But it's a lot easier for me to break a habit and spend 2 minutes doing it than it is for me to try and break a habit and spend 30 to 45 minutes doing it.
Oh yeah. You're saying to yourself, I ain't got time for that.
Exactly.
I gotta be on. No, I'm talking about, hey, you want to do one now? You want to do a quick transition?
Yeah.
An energy one now for
Yeah.
the audience? Okay, so I'm gonna stand up. Let me push my chair back a little bit. Okay, so here's one that I do when I don't have a lot of time or I'm running late and I've got back-to-back clients, and not back-to-back intentionally, just because we ran over. I put my arms in front of me and I stand with my feet grounded. Come on, you're gonna do this. Get up. Come on, Donnie, you can do this. And what we're gonna do is, before you do it, you're gonna breathe in and out through your nose like this, really fast for a count of 20 while smiling. And wait a minute, and clapping. So it's gonna be like this. You're gonna do that to a count of 20, and then you're gonna continue clapping and say, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, 5 times. You ready? Let's go as fast as you can. Breathe, smile, mouth closed, and breathe. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Woo!
It's really, I definitely feel it.
You feel it? Like literally.
I do.
How long did that take?
Maybe
and
30
now
seconds.
You're gonna pick up, like you're gonna go on your next Zoom and you're re-energized. Okay, let's do this. Bring it, yeah. I love that one, because that one I can do like on a quick bathroom break. I can do it in front of the mirror in the bathroom. I'm like, okay, I got this. But it doesn't take me doing a 20-minute. But I'm just like, when you feel like you don't even have time to make the cup of coffee. This is gonna get oxygen in your brain. Get your body moving. Sometimes I do it doing you're just bouncing up and down and clapping. My dog and I, Lexi, my favorite person in the world. Sometimes I'll just chase her around the coffee table for 2 minutes and she gets exhausted quick. So do I. And then we're like, okay, we're good. But you got to get moving. Something to get you moving so that you get that energy in you, because you know what? We're in the habit of our family getting our leftovers.
Yes.
This is what's left after we've spent everything on, content creation and funnel building and client support and checking on our social media. And now you get what's left of me, and there ain't much left of mommy. So just bring her a drink and be quiet and watch TV. Like, come on.
Yeah. I remember at one point, my partner said something like, I feel like I get the scraps. I feel like I get the scraps. I was like, yeah, that is true, because I'm exhausted. And so I'm like, that doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to feel that way. And
the dog gets the scraps.
Yeah.
The guest in your home that you treat like royalty, that's how I treat my husband. We get the best sheets. Listen, we're both people of color, and I'm sure what we have in common is that mom and daddy save the good silverware and the good towels for the guests. So I know that happened. I am intentionally using the good sheets and the good towels and the good plates and the good silverware. I have my special occasion like Thanksgiving, Christmas plates, because that's just tradition I don't want to give up, because that makes the whole occasion special. But that'll get bought out because it's just me and my husband on Thanksgiving. We're going to use the good stuff, because we need to make each other feel how special we truly are to each other.
Yeah.
And when you only say, like, don't eat that, that's for the guests. Don't touch that, that's for the guests. Like, I remember hearing that as a little girl. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Why did I get treated better? Like, you love them more? As a little kid, you kind of think that. But, it's funny, like, because we always carry those traditions, those relationship styles, how we relate, those relationship personality styles, which is another thing I work on with my clients, is to diagnose what their relationship personality style is, so that we can see how it's showing up and how you relate today. And that's really important to know, because once you recognize it and you see it, like, that's what I'm giving you. Like, I feel myself getting upset because he ate the good something that I was saving for when the guests come. Like, if you're making a charcuterie plate and you're like, like, no, it's supposed to look pretty for the guests. Like, my husband, like, the guests are late, we gonna eat.
But it's in front of me. Yeah, I'm one of the guests.
But yeah, I mean, and it really is having that mindset of making the relationships in your life that are important to you feel important all the time.
What are some of the things that people can think about as we go into the holidays, or think about how to begin the steps to making their relationship better? Because, you got to a relationship and it happened over a period of time. So it's not just magically going to turn around overnight. But I think if people want their relationships to work and be more successful, then there are little things that they can begin thinking about or doing. So what are some?
I would say really be consciously present in those relationships. Like, don't be distracted. Be present. Be listening. Make sure the other person feels seen and heard by you. Number one is you got to take care of yourself, because you can't show up fully for the people in your life when you're not on your A game and feeling your best. Practice generous listening. Practice being curious. That's a good one. I always like to say, be curious before being furious. If somebody, at family gatherings, if you're still able to have, a safe gathering for this holiday season, if somebody says something that rubs you the wrong way, get more curious about their intention and what they meant by it. Because one of the things that I've learned to ask when I'm sharing is for feedback on what was heard. Like, what did you hear me say in that? Because if you heard something different than what I intended you to hear, it's up to me. It's up to me to take responsibility and make sure that my intention and my heart is made clear in that statement, and that I'm not misunderstood. We always put it on other people. Well, if they don't understand what I'm saying, that's their problem. Yeah. We get to really be responsible for how we're showing up, who we're being while we show up. I mean, just a quick little story if we have time. When it was last New Year's Eve, or the New Year's Eve before that, I said to my husband, I don't want to go out. I just want to be you and I on New Year's Eve. Let's cook a nice meal. Let's snuggle on the couch and fall asleep like old people before midnight, because, and I'm pouring out my heart. I love you, and I just want it to be us, because all the other New Year's Eves in the past, we've either been traveling or with a lot of other people. And I always felt like, I had to share you and I was neglected. I just want just me and you, like, wouldn't that make you want to have just New Year's Eve with me if I said that to you, Donnie?
I've had that conversation with my partner, and it's like, let's go with friends.
Well, I was being very vulnerable and intimate in my plea to be alone with my husband, and he had an attitude the rest of the day, and I couldn't figure it out. And of course, me being a girl, I was making up all kinds of stories in my head. And it ended up that night was a disaster. He didn't sit with me on the couch. He went to bed early. He barely spoke to me the whole night. And I'm thinking, okay, what just happened here? Thank God for coaching, because I called my coach the next day and I'm like, I'm all up in my feelings. You know, it was like incomplete breakdown. And then, you know, said to my husband, because he was out and about, and I was like, you know, I think we need to talk about last night. You know, when can we talk about this? Always make sure it's a good time to talk about it. And so this is what I didn't do, Donnie. I didn't ask him, what did you hear me say? So when he came home, I said, well, we talked about this. What did you hear me say? He goes, I heard for the past 20 years, you had miserable New Year's Eves with me. Ding, 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 ding. If I had asked that the night before, I could have cleared that up and been more clear in my communication, because what I was really trying to say is, I love you and I just want you all to myself because you're amazing. I had no idea he thought that, because in my mind, it was clear.
Yeah.
But apparently just in my mind. And so we just looked at each other and said, let's have a do-over. And we had a do-over and we were fine. But, you know, there was fear in me in having the conversation, because what if he says, you know what, I don't want to spend New Year's Eve with you. I'd rather be out with friends. Or, you know, we're so afraid of what we might hear that ends up with rejection and being uncomfortable and us feeling bad. And literally, he heard something totally different from what I was saying. And because we didn't clear it at the time, I mean, don't get me wrong, I kept asking him, what's wrong? Are you okay? And it was just like, you know, I'm fine. Yeah, everything's fine. You know that fine, right? So both of us were failing miserably in that relationship that night. But we were able to, you know, have our time to process and then come back together and like, yeah, we were idiots and let's do this again.
Well, the beautiful thing that just came to mind as you were sharing is that it takes courage to have these types of conversations, both to get the words out and also to receive the answers. But I think that courage is such a big part of the success equation, because otherwise, if you don't say it, then it never gets expressed. And so they never know or have the opportunity to show up differently or do something differently. So it's a great reminder that this is a partnership, and part of the partnership means I have to ask you for something in order for me to receive that something from you, and vice versa.
And that's where a lot of people let the ball drop. I mean, we see it in the movies all the time where people are just not willing to say what they truly feel or think, and then the lovers never get together and you're like, oh, but just tell her, you know, like you're screaming at the movies. And you know, but it does show up that way in life. I mean, when I work with my clients, I work with them in the areas of clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence as a, you know, the foundation is the relationship personality styles. And then we build those 5 areas of high performance. And then we move into mastery of those areas of high performance. And it really is, you know, I always use real estate as an analogy because I built a real estate investment business and did a lot of rehabs. But unless you're really building on a solid foundation, and that's what my husband and I had to do. We had to do, we had a house on the foundation that was in breakdown, and we decided to tear the whole house down and re-pour the foundation and build our relationship up from a new foundation. And that's why it's more solid now. It's not a repaired foundation. We built a new foundation so that there's no, you know, if you've ever tried to repair something, sometimes those cracks show up again. And we were intentionally building something new. And so it's really important to know yourself so that you can grow yourself into that person you want to be in your life and in your business.
It's wonderful. Well, I would love for people to reach out to you and learn more about your work. So how can people do that?
Well, that's easy. Go to talkwitheva.com and I'm happy to connect with people. Also, if you go to my website, which is just evamedilek.com, you can get access to that free ebook I was telling you about, The 6 Powerful Ways of Being. It's just like a little 7 or 8 page download, but it really goes into specifics on how you can have more honest, intimate, generous, connected conversations in every area of your life.
Well, Eva, it has been a pleasure having you as a guest and talking to you about relationships and success. And is there one takeaway you want people to go away with?
I would say yes, there is one. You know, most of us become disappointed, frustrated, and angry because our expectations aren't met. And so I would say, as you are gathering for the holidays in whatever way, shape, or form you are connecting with your loved ones, is don't expect people to be different from who they are. Just kind of love what is for this holiday season. Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to staying connected with you, and I hope you and your family have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you, Donnie. Same to you and your family as well.
All right, bye, bye, everybody.
Bye.